Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Techie Simplified, and today we are talking about how to choose the best phone for yourself in 2021. Now, 2021 specifically is a difficult time in tech, not for anything but rather for the fact that you're spoiled for choice. There's so many devices that are being released on a monthly basis that it is really difficult to choose the best smartphone for yourself. So today I'm going to tell you how to narrow down the smartphones so that you have to put in the least effort and do not buy the incorrect device. Now the following video has been divided into chapters and you can find the chapter that best suits your need down below, right? So let's get started. First and foremost, let me tell you, if you're an Indian, don't fall for the trap of 5G. Now, a lot of companies are trying to sell you really bad devices under the garb of 5G. Please don't do that. The rollout for 5G in India is still at least 3 years away, and it is really difficult to figure out what bands actually will come. But the bands being given right now will for sure come. Other than that, what bands are coming, we do not know. So don't fall for the 5G trap, right? It is very far away, and don't buy bad phones just for 5G, right? Secondly, let's get started with the decision of what type of a buyer are you. Are you an enthusiast? Are you a photographer? Are you an all-rounder? Are you a student? Or are you a professional? Now we have these 5 categories. Let me explain these categories to you so that you can identify yourself. Wait, we missed out one category, that is gamer, right? So enthusiast. Enthusiast is someone who loves to have modern technology, modern features. They want to be on the cutting edge. They're also someone who tries to experiment their phones. They have custom ROMs, etc. So if you're one of those, you need to choose phones that are really latest, have all the good features, but you need to make sure that you do not mind paying for them too. Because don't compromise on the quality just to get some experimental features. Also try to look at companies like Xiaomi and OnePlus and Motorola because they offer a lot more feature set and a lot more freedom to people who are enthusiasts. If you're someone who loves taking photographs, I would suggest look at the DxOMark scores and look at the real life photography reviews for the said devices. Now, if I had to name some devices for photography centric use, I would suggest the iQOO 7, the iQOO 7 Legend, the Vivo X60, the Vivo X60 Pro, on the budget section, Redmi Note 10 Pro and Redmi Note 10 Pro Max. Those are a few of the phones that I would really suggest, and obviously the OnePlus Nord 2 as far as photography is concerned. If you're someone who's a student, I would suggest go for anything with a bigger screen and a good battery life because you will be watching that screen for a long time and you need that battery life to go on. Other than that, don't skimp out on a good processor because most of the times when your phone has been running constantly a video for a long time, you're going to have lags. And the better the processor, the less the lag. So make sure that you do not skimp out on the processor. If you're a student, don't worry about going for MediaTek. If it costs you lesser, it will be the best for you if you have a decent processor and a decent amount of RAM. Don't worry about 5G as a student because by the time you graduate and you get a job, you'll obviously be buying a new device. Other than that, if you're a gamer, right? If you're a gamer, I would suggest go for either iQOO devices or the latest Poco F3 GT. But I would still suggest if you are not someone who uses triggers, iQOO 7 still stands out to be the best gaming champ in the industry at the moment, and I would suggest you go for it. By the way, if you're wondering where all these products can be found, the links of the products can be found in the description given down below and you can check them out for yourself, and you'll also be helping out the channel by doing that. Other than that, if you're someone who's a professional, you need something that is firstly branded for a very simple reason. I will tell you a very simple psychology. When you go to the meeting, when you go into the office, your phone should be presentable. It should be something that people don't say, oh, what is this brand? No. See, in a professional setup, these are some of the things that you require. Other than that, you also require a bug-free experience, a stable experience, and a sturdy experience. Off the bat, I think higher end Samsungs and Apple phones are something that you should really look for. If not, you should try for Motorola phones. They're pretty clean. You don't get a lot of bloatware. Usually less buggy OS since its stock, right? Now that we are done with this basic set of what type of a user are you, let's get on to what are the important aspects in a device that you should look for. Firstly, processor, right? A lot of people are confused about this. Now, firstly, you need to understand that each processor costs in a certain way, right? So if you're in the 700 series range, right, it will cost you anywhere from 17,000 to 25,000. Now, the 25,000 is a range where you can also find Dimensity 1200 processor phones, and these phones are actually flagships. So I would rather suggest leave Snapdragon 700 series here and go for the Dimensity 1200 series. But in case you're someone who really wants a Snapdragon device, I would suggest go for the Snapdragon 768 devices or anything maybe one generation below that, but don't go below it. Now, the 800 series is definitely flagship. I would suggest at this moment go for anything in the 870 series rather than going for 888, because 888 yet is not stable and still showcases a lot of heating issues. Now, the gap between 778 and 870 is really lower right now. So if you are a bit tight on budget, you can look at Realme GT Master Edition or phones with similar specs. You can also look at the Note 2 with the Dimensity 1200 processor, though it does not cost that less. You can also look at Realme X7 Max. Now, this brings us to the big debate whether the Dimensity processors are better or the Snapdragon processors are better. Now, to be very honest to you, the difference between the both is closing down. With Dimensity, you're going to get a few clear-cut advantages. Firstly, it's future-proof. You're going to get more 5G bands with Dimensity processors, unless you're buying a Xiaomi device. Why, I don't know. But when it comes to Dimensity processors, the general trend is you're going to get more 5G bands, which is something that you should really look forward to, because it's not just the 5G bands, it's the fact that you can use dual 5G, you can have voice over 5G. Now, these are the things that are only being offered at that price range by Dimensity processors. Dimensity processors aren't bad as they used to be, but I would suggest go anything in the Dimensity 1000 series because they offer the best bang for the buck. Now, I would suggest if you have a lower price range, then only consider Snapdragon 600 devices, and that too the latest ones if possible. Do not go for the Snapdragon 400 devices. They are not at all good. They're practically rubbish. Don't ever choose that. Now we come to RAM. How much RAM does Android require at the moment? At the moment, Android more or less uses 3.5 GB of RAM. So make sure that you buy the 6 GB variant or the 8 GB variant to make yourself future proof. Right now, the RAM requirements for Android devices is not a lot, and I don't think it is going to increase that drastically that you need to buy a 12 GB RAM variant or something more than that. So make sure that you limit your RAM variants to at least 6 or 8 GB. 8 GB is more preferable as it makes the device more future-proof yet very balanced. Now, talking about the different types of screens that you can check out. In the case of screen, I would suggest go for an AMOLED. Now, the refresh rate is dependent on your use. To be very honest, the difference between 60 Hz and 120 Hz is night and day. So yes, if you do get a chance to buy a device with AMOLED 120 Hz, go for it without a doubt. But it should not be a deal breaker if your budget is very low, as most of the low budget devices are not really offering an AMOLED screen with a high refresh rate. Now, in today's time, the LCD screens have also improved a lot. So if you're getting a good feature set, don't just worry about the LCD screen, because most of the LCD screens today are really good. Just make sure that the LCD is an IPS display, right? Make sure that the LCD is an IPS display because that is an important factor. But if possible, choose AMOLED screen. Now, coming on to sound, etc., haptics, all the miscellaneous features. Now, in the case of miscellaneous features, as you go up the price range, the differences between these phones start getting lower, right? But the quality is increasing slowly. At a point, it stagnates. Now, if you're in the price range of 20 to 30, I would suggest buy a phone with stereo speakers, because in today's day and age, it is something that is very important and it actually sounds very nice. Other than that, call quality today is something that usually isn't debatable in today's day and age, because most of the companies have done enough R&D to have good call quality and cellular reception. Most of the phones today also come with Bluetooth 5.1 and 5.2. That is something you can easily overlook. So these miscellaneous things can be overlooked no matter What? Because today's day and age, everyone is providing these things. Now we come to cameras. Cameras is something that is debatable. I would suggest most of the time, keep looking at your primary camera as your first preference instead of getting wowed by all the 3 and the 4 cameras that these companies include. Most of the times is to psychologically affect you into thinking that this phone has better camera, right? Just increasing the number of lenses on a device does not make it a good camera phone, right? Also, don't fall for extreme megapixel numbers, at least in the lower ranges, right? 48 megapixel can also shoot amazing shots. Even 12 megapixel phones can shoot amazing shots. It depends on the size of the pixel and type of the sensor. So make sure you have a good camera sensor. If you want to buy a phone with a good camera, make sure that you check out the sensor rather than the megapixels. Don't concentrate on the megapixels. Most of the times, again, these companies are trying to wow you with 108 megapixel, etc., etc. To be very honest, these are actually 12 megapixel photos where pixels are shortened or made smaller to increase the number of megapixels. In the end, the number of megapixels may increase, but the main photo or the main sensor is a 12 megapixel sensor. They use something known as pixel binning. So don't fall for these gimmicky huge numbers, right? On the higher end, yes, make sure that you fall for these numbers and make sure you check out, yeah, which one has a better camera. But when you come down the range line, don't fall for extremely huge numbers. Try to check out the real camera samples and try to check out which sensor the phone has. Talking about video recording, just because someone has slapped the OIS tag on a phone does not mean that the OIS is good enough. So make sure you watch a lot of videos and check out if the OIS actually works in the case of videos.